slavery truly did its job. To some of you.
Hello, welcome back to my YouTube channel. And if you're new here, welcome. My name is Achila Yana. I'm a researcher, genealogist, and author. I wrote the book Discovering American Genealogy. Definitely go check that out on Amazon. Nonetheless, let's get right into this video. First and foremost, I want to take a stroll down memory lane and give you guys a quick little history lesson when it comes to American history, because a lot of people will see the back and forth between Aboriginals and Natives and want to join forces with the Natives because they feel like they're on the right side of history. However, they don't know American Indian history enough to even pick a side. But how you going to be on the right side of history if you don't even know the truth about American history to begin with? FYI, I will be listing the sources down in the description box below, so y'all can read up on the sources and information I will be discussing in this video. So know where all the sources is in the description. Don't be lazy. Now, since that has been discussed, let's get right into it. So before I talk about American Indian slavery, I want to talk about the blood quantum rule, because a lot of people tend to overlook this rule when we are discussing American Indian ancestry and lineage. And a lot of people feel like they're doing the right thing by backing up Natives and what they have to say when it comes to darker skinned Aboriginal Americans talking about their ancestry and calling out $5 Indians and fake Natives and so on and so forth. They feel like they're doing the right thing by backing up Natives, but I want to give y'all guys a rundown when it comes to history, because a lot of people don't fully understand what blood quantum is all about. Blood quantum is about tracing whiteness. Since Aboriginal Americans were reclassified as black colored, Negro colored, etc., due to slavery, the United States government knew that they could use the mixed race descendants of Aboriginal Americans to their advantage. Not only that, but when you read up on who was actually signing the treaties with government officials, it's oftentimes mixed race Indians that were signing these treaties. However, despite the fact that government officials were signing treaties with these mixed race natives, the United States government still does not want to be financially obligated to American Indian nations. And let's look at the top 3 reasons why. Number 1, pale people were being adopted into American Indian nations at high numbers. Hint, hint, Scottish Irish. Number 2, pale people were paying money to be listed as Indian on the Dawes Rolls and other Indian rolls. And lastly, number 3, which is most important, American Indians, whether mixed race natives or Aboriginal Americans, they were intermarrying with pale people at high numbers. So the United States government was like, you know what? If these people keep mixing in with pale people at high numbers, eventually we're not going to be financially responsible to them because they have bleached out their own bloodline. And this is why so many natives get offended when you call them white or say that they're white looking. And it's because they know that they have heavy amounts of white ancestry and that the government is waiting at any moment to legally declare that all Native Americans are no longer living due to the simple fact that they have been bred out. Now, with all that being said, I want to zoom back in on the divide between Aboriginals and Natives. The divide is only going to get bigger because as the truth continues to come out and these pretendians and these fake natives and these $5 Indians continue to get exposed, guess what? Whoever is in proximity to them are going to get exposed too. Now, natives, they had so many years to call out these pale people joining American Indian nations and pretending to be Indian. Now, not saying that they have never done it, but they're not doing it on a scale like how they do with Aboriginal Americans. I don't see them consistently and continuously mocking pale people who pretend to be indigenous. Because you can't bite the hand that feeds you, baby. You can't bite the hand that feeds you. Because whether they want to acknowledge it or not, the natives do get some type of benefit from being put on a pedestal and seen as the standard. Although natives claim that they hate stereotypes, they still will hold other melanated indigenous people to those stereotypes because they do not want to share the spotlight and they don't want people to know the truth. Meaning that a majority of these natives who are heavily mixed with white and are mixed white people themselves, they don't want the truth to get out. So they will point all the fingers away from them and the pale people that they are related to and who are also pretending to be native as well. But nonetheless, I'm going to go ahead and show y'all this video because I want to get so deep into it, y'all. I want to get so deep, but I can't get deep into it if y'all have not seen the full video. So I'm going to show y'all the full video and I'm going to come back with further commentary.
Look, y'all, I'm going to drop this gem on y'all and I'm going to let y'all go, man. I'm going to let y'all go. Watch this. This is the Indian training schools. They had schools to teach them how to be Indians. Watch this, y'all. Now, look what it said. What did they do in the Indian training schools? Watch this. Such things, they taught them such as farming and housekeeping. Now, come on, y'all. If they from this land, why they teaching them how to farm this land? I want you to go to the Library of Congress and pull up the information about their farming schools, about their Indian schools, y'all.
Your laughter itself should be enough to show how ignorant you are of the history of indigenous people. Because all these schools have massive graves. You truly hate yourself that much that you try to steal someone else's culture. Now, those schools were there to teach us how to be more human, civilized, because we were considered savages. However, your people, not by words, were not considered human. And there's a big difference. To the white men, you were considered property. And through centuries, the fight for equality continued. And now that this is coming to a reality, people like you are coming to indigenous people with this, trying to erase us from the map. But see, when we ask you to speak the language, to give history of the land, tradition, dances, people like you stumble because you have no ground. Slavery truly did its job to some of you, which it was to rip the identity that you guys had. And you are the perfect proof of it.
So y'all heard that clip, y'all. And first and foremost, I want to talk about how baby girl used Wikipedia to make her argument. Like, babe, I don't know who need to hear this, but Wikipedia is not a reliable source. Like, homegirl should have scrolled down to the citations and checked out the source that they got that from, and then go to that source and then screenshot to make her argument. But nonetheless, she did what she did, and this is where we at now. So yes, don't use Wikipedia to make an argument. Wikipedia is not a reliable source. Nonetheless, I want to address some things real quickly. First and foremost, since the schools have been brought up, these residential schools, boarding schools, schools in general, people forget that we were also affected by these institutions and these schools as well. They were trying to train us to be civilized as well. And just because a person is classified as Negro does not mean that they're African. There are American Indians that were reclassified as Negroes. So the term Negro is not solely exclusive to Africans, just like the term savage is not solely exclusive to modern day natives. If you were not pale European, they viewed you as uncivilized, period. And I also can't forget to mention how some American Indian nations were coming up with freedmen schools to educate the freedmen's on how to be civilized and learn and all this other stuff. So yes, so-called Native Americans are not the only ones affected by the schools and the boarding schools or whatever. And this is why it's so important for people to learn more about history. People love to downplay history and say it's not important, but they sure do gasp. They sure do choke when they come to the realization that history is repeating itself. If you don't know history, you're bound to repeat it because you have not learned the lessons that have come from it. So natives want to sit here and continuously poke at you melanated Aboriginal Americans when they are lacking the historical education when it comes to American Indian history. It's like so many natives can only see their experience and forget that the darker skinned Aboriginal American people were also there. We were there, we saw, and our ancestors told us what was up. And this is why people are coming at natives the way that they are. Also, we can sit here and play the morality game and say, oh, it's not right. People shouldn't be doing that. But no one never talks about how natives should not be separating themselves from Aboriginal Americans and making it seem like they are the only ones that suffered at the hand of colonizers, when in reality, many natives helped colonizers get to where they at right now. And that's not to say Aboriginals didn't help colonizers get where they at either, but to sit here and throw stones and hide your hand and use slavery as a I gotcha moment, like American Indians were also enslaved. Let's look at the stats, shall we? Now, the American Indian slavery facts I will be telling you on this video, I have gotten it from this article called Perspective, the Other Slavery by Andres Resendez. Y'all can definitely check it out on the Smithsonian. I know some of y'all don't like the Smithsonian, but it is what it is. There's other sources to talk about American Indian slavery. I just choose it to get it from this one. Now, Resendez says in this article, and I quote, during the 4 centuries between the arrival of Columbus and the beginning of the 20th century, 2.5 to 5 million indigenous people were enslaved, end quote. Now, obviously, slavery affected American Indian people. It has affected us deeply. And it's sad that natives want to dismiss this, but only want to bring up slavery when they're trying to demean and degrade other Aboriginal Americans for whatever reason. Because let's not forget that a lot of these natives are descendants of Asian slaves via the Manila Galleon. So I remember when that book came out too, From Chinos to Indians, a lot of natives were mad about that because their ancestry was being exposed. So again, slavery affects all of us, whether people want to address it or not, whether they want to admit it or not. Slavery does affect us all, whether negatively or positively, it affects us. I want to take the time to point out how little resources there are out there to help people connect the dots when it comes to their enslaved Indigenous American ancestry. If you were to Google how to research enslaved American Indian ancestors, more than likely articles talking about how to research enslaved African American ancestors will pop up. Why? Because they only want us to focus on that. And I think it's really sad when you're trying to research your ancestors who are of American Indian descent and you only pretty much come across sources on how to research African American ancestors. That's not going to help you a whole lot. However, I did come across the Harvard Slavery Remembrance Program, where the focus of the program is to research enslaved people who were enslaved by the Harvard staff and trace their direct descendants who are living and deceased. And I also came across another project called the Native Bound Unbound Project, which identifies and documents thousands of forgotten indigenous slaves, many who were indentured in southern Colorado. So if y'all want to read more about them, I will put them in the description box below. But the information out there is pretty thin. Like, it's not as thorough and deep as it is with enslaved African American genealogy is. However, since I am doing a video about slavery, basically, I do want to give y'all guys some tips on how to research enslaved indigenous ancestors, since the information is kind of scarce on it. So first and foremost, you want to do what you would normally do when it comes to researching your genealogy, which is getting the names, birth dates, death dates, birth locations, death locations of your elders and ancestors, as much as information as you possibly can get. And then research the area that your ancestors lived in, see what tribal nations resided in that area, and then also look into records. For example, census records, property records, estate records, baptismal records. Look into those records and see if they confirm suspected indigenous ancestry, or you find an indigenous ancestor, whatever case may be. Those are the stuffs on how to research enslaved indigenous ancestors. However, I do wish there was more information on it, because people focus way too much on quote unquote African American slaves, when in fact there were several groups of people that were in America that were also enslaved as well, including American Indians. Slavery is not exclusive to Africans. And I know someone's going to say, but they banned American Indian slavery early on. Okay, well, the Spanish crown abolished American Indian slavery in 1542, but that does not mean that it was completely banned. They still found ways to enslave indigenous people. And even though there are several times throughout history where indigenous people fought colonizers and fought for their freedom, guess what? They were still being enslaved. So much, in fact, that even after the abolishment of slavery in the United States, American Indians were still being enslaved. So learning American history is very important, which is why I wrote my book. And I also talk about these things in my book too. So definitely check out my book on Amazon, Discovering American Genealogy, because everything I'm talking about in here, I talk about in my book on a deeper level. But before I go, I want to share some more American Indian slavery facts with you guys. So, number one, American Indian slaves were sent to Europe, Africa, the South Pacific Islands, and the Caribbean. A lot of people don't know that. A lot of people also don't know that most enslaved indigenous Americans were women and children. Women could be worth 50 to 60% more than men. A lot of people are going to get mad at me for saying this, but this needs to be said too. American Indians also ran the Underground Railroad. A lot of people tend to overlook that as well. Now, while he's saying slavery truly did its job, it seemed like it did its job with him too. He don't even know that slavery even affects American Indians too. Crazy, child, just crazy. But nonetheless, let me know what y'all think in the comment section. What do y'all think about what the girl said? What do you think about what this man said? And most importantly, what do you think about what I said? Do you agree? Do you not agree? Are you angry? Are you mad? Are you happy? Are you sad? Comment down below. Don't forget to like this video, share this video, and also don't forget to subscribe too, because you know you're going to come back. Whether you like my content or not, you're going to come back, talk mess or praise. It don't even matter. You're going to come back either way. So go ahead and subscribe and hit the notification button, all notifications, so you get notified when I go live and when I upload a video. Thank y'all guys for watching, and until the next time, toodaloo.